So up here at Eagle Lake, we're being affected greatly by the backwater flood that is occurring this year. Right now, the lake is about 17 feet higher than its normal levels. Pretty much every boathouse, every pier is covered completely. A little bit of the boathouse roofs are showing, as you'll see if you get down around the lake. And the water's been out of its banks, protected banks, for over a month, and it's up in people's yard, which is causing a lot of erosion and scouring, washing away a lot of the topsoil. Just this week, we're going to start getting water in houses up here. And so we're getting water from both sides now. We have the backwater on one side of us, and we have the lake rising on the other. So, and we are stuck on sort of a peninsula in between the two. We're fighting as hard as we can with sandbags and pumps, trying to save, as much property and access to property as we can, but we are fighting a losing battle. It's got a long and kind of sordid history, over 40 years. So after the flood this goes all the way back to the flood of 1927, and the following year, 1928, when they had the government made the Flood Control Act, and put in, plans for how to control flooding caused by the Mississippi River. And so in the years following that, they built levees and channels and flood control structures. They built, of course, the Mississippi levee on one side, and then over on the east side of that, they built a backwater levee, they call it. And what this did essentially was it funneled water down to one spot. And that spot is the STEELE Bayou floodgate. And what happens at STEELE Bayou is that when the Mississippi River starts flooding and it gets higher, the backwater, all the water in the delta behind that, they have to close those STEELE Bayou gates. Because if not, the river would flood the delta. So they close those gates, and at that time, the backwater has nowhere to drain. And the gates were closed this year on February 15th, I believe. The STEELE Bayou gates were closed. So since February the 15th, all the water coming from north of us, from all the states north of us, just collected and started rising. It reached levels, that we have not seen since like 1973. The worst it's been in almost 50 years. They call it a bathtub with no drain. The lake is rising, the backwater's rising, Mississippi River is rising, and we're fighting as hard as we can. The solution is finish the project they started 40 years ago. The Corps of Engineers plan, engineer design, was to have a pumping station there. There's 22 other pumps in the delta down here in Arkansas and Louisiana that pump water. The plan is to try to get those pumps built. By the time we started trying to build it, they actually built the intake and outlet structures for it and the cofferdam. The last thing was starting to build the pumps. And we get the biggest obstacle for that now is in 2008, the EPA vetoed that project on the basis that they said that it would damage 200,000 acres of wetlands and that it was not cost effective, that flooding in this area was minimal, and that it didn't really affect that many people, and that they wanted to protect the wildlife. So it got vetoed. Since that time, though, the flooding has gotten exponentially worse. It's hard to ignore how much impact this is having on people, on property, and on wetlands and wildlife. These aren't just wetlands anymore. These are lakes. These wetlands have been underwater now since last fall. Thousands of people have been displaced from their homes, hundreds and hundreds of homes with water in them. They're doing more damage by not having these pumps than they would be doing if they supposedly put them in.
This house here belongs to a fellow named Joe Phoenix.
Well, that's got to make you smile, Mr. Chocolate, huh? It's not in your house yet.
That's my real name, Lee Chocolate. Or call my name Lee Chocolate. Live down here on Goose Lake. all of my life. You know, plenty of water. It's tore up. It's got a big hole in it. Whatever way you hit it, just knocked it inside and got all the furniture lost and everything.
This is Mr. Chocolate's daughter's house. As you can see, most of her belongings, they had to get out so fast. When the water was rising, they left a lot of stuff. See, it's washed, the wave action's washed through the wall back there.
My name is Thomas Jones. We're in Holly Bluff, Mississippi, and this is my home. In 1950s, the government bought some land from my father, and it split our land right down the middle. And they promised us if we sold the land, that flood issues wouldn't happen. So in 1973, we had one of the biggest floods in history. And so I know today, I hope I live to see that we get the pumps in so we won't have these problems anymore. My family, I'm fourth generation here, and I'm not planning on leaving, and I'm gonna fight the flood. And I built this levee around my house to protect my house, and whatever it takes for me to stay here, I'm gonna stay here.
I am 73 years old, and I was married for 54 years, 10 months and 2 days. My husband passed away in June. He didn't get to experience this flood, but he dearly loved Holly Bluff, had been living here all of his life. We experienced the 1973 flood, but I really don't think it was as long lasting as this flood. Friends put up this sandbag levee, as you can see, and in places the levee is up to the sandbag. This is just no way to live, of packing and unpacking. The best I could do was, like I said, pack up some of the bottom floor. It's a 2-story house. Took as much as I could upstairs, but okay, so that's kind of hard to do.
We started off, me and my wife started off renting a motel room because we were under the assumption, like last year, 2.5 weeks, you know, and then we could handle that. After we saw it stretch on into 6 weeks, we decided that we got to invest in a small camper trailer, home for us right now. The land is handed down from my father. It's also the idea of the pump. If we had had this pump, that would help us all out a lot. That would help our farmer friends, that would help everybody. It's gonna be a bad year.
My name is Jeff Terry. We're here at Eagle Lake fighting the backwater. A lot of my friends have always said, you know, well, you live by the river, you live in a flood zone and all this, you ought to be used to it. Most people don't understand that this is rainwater, this is backwater, this is a levee that's holding the backwater. Without the steel bow pumps to pump the water over into the river, we're going to flood every year. There's 5 foot of difference between this water and the lake right now. If we cannot keep it out of the lake, we're going to lose a lot of houses. Right now we have 35 convicts, 2 different football teams, and most of the community out sandbagging. We've got over 50,000 sandbags along the road. Hopefully, we're going to be able to keep it out. This is almost June, and this land is not planted. The pumps have not been put in, the levees have been built, the inlet and the outlet for the pump has been built. Before they put the levees up, Louisiana elevation is 74. This elevation is 94 to 97. Take the levees down and it's going to flood all the way to Monroe. Just right next to us, Arkansas has 3 pumps, Louisiana has 4 pumps. Mississippi has not okayed the backwater pumps yet. They need to get it together. The animals out here are suffering, the people are suffering, and we cannot continue like this.